My crab people, welcome back to the channel. The Anvil update, early access number 10 is finally here, and I'm so excited to dive into the new weapon, the new ability, and get out of this stinky ruby rank that's currently on the screen. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the patch notes, but I'm more going to be talking about the implications it's going to be having on your gameplay. Now, if you've already played the beta update, then you'll probably know a lot of these things already, but if you're jumping into this new update from the live version, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's changed, and you are really going to struggle. So definitely stay tuned in as I talk through these patch notes and talk about some of the changes that you're going to have to make to your gameplay, but let's just dive straight into it. Righto, so the Anvil update, early access update number 10. Also, Crab Champion's now on sale at the moment, so if you don't have it, go get it. It's $10. I pay more for a beer. Right, let's go. Patch highlights. We have the Lightning Sceptre, which is very, very cool. I actually haven't used it yet. I've seen some gameplay footage. A friend of mine said it feels like you're playing Peach from Smash Brothers, or you're playing Fleet from Rivals of Aether, if you've ever heard of that. But really, really cool. Looks like fun, and there'll be a video, obviously, on my gameplay of that with the new ability, the Air Strike, which is absolutely fascinating. So powerful. And I think a lot of people are going to be enjoying the new ability. We also have the new melee weapon. This is the top tier melee weapon, the katana. I'm just going to say that straight away. You need to get the katana ASAP. It is absolutely crazy good. And then we also have an arcane wand rework. Definitely needed a bit of love, but that's really exciting. Anvils, obviously, it's the Anvil update. You're going to be having Anvils, so that's great. And we've got a fair few new enemies. Because the update was in beta for so long, I feel like I'm so used to some of these enemies already. But there's some new enemies and some new cool stuff. Yeah, let's go straight into the patch notes. So, patch notes? Come on, NoScrub. Right, patch notes, Anvil, Portal, Enhancements 2.0. I think enhancements were a good addition to the game, but they had a few issues. There wasn't enough control over which enhancements you got, and you weren't able to target specific mods to enhance. In this update, I've added an Anvil Portal reward, which gives 3 enhanceable choices after clearing an island. You can then choose to enhance a specific mod from your inventory, allowing for a much more targeted build centered around one main mod. The random enhancement totem in the shop is unchanged, other than not being guaranteed anymore, as it's a fun alternative way to get enhancements. Rolling the dice in hopes of getting something good. Full stop. Great. Immediately great. This is a big thing about enhancements. It's always a thing where people don't know that it even exists. So having Anvils is brilliant. Added new enhancements. Returning, orbiting, chipping, growing, endangering, expanding, persisting, doubling, booming, tripling, zigging, accelerating, spiraling, and more. Now, I'm hoping that later on Noisestorm is going to go into it, because there's a fair few here that I think you probably won't know about. If he doesn't, I'll talk about it, but there's some really cool enhancements, and they're all so unique. Increase the enhancement limit per mod from 3 to 8. This really is a big enhance. An enhanced list. You can really bulk out some of your weapon mods now, which I've definitely explored a lot. Enhancements now works on turrets. So you see all of these that can now work on your turrets, and you can now apply the same enhancement multiple times for stronger effects. So yeah, you can totally add doubling 8 times. So you have so many more projectiles. And salvaging enhanced pickups now gives more crystals per enhancement. Higher rarity enhancements give more crystals. So what Noisestorm is saying here is that if you're to get a legendary enhancement on one of your weapon mods, it will now show as more crystals when you salvage it, which is really good, because especially if you want to get rid of something and you put all this time and effort into it, it was always a shame that you would lose all of those enhancements, whereas now you're going to get more crystals, which is really good. Now, Health 2.0. This is the part that I think is going to throw a lot of people off. Health 2.0. A regeneration chest that contains healing loot now spawns in addition to a guaranteed damage chest on Island 1. So the first island you do, you get your normal damage chest, but you also get your guaranteed health chest, which only happens on Island 1. I want there to be a nice balance between health as a currency on things like spike chests, and being able to recover from small mistakes like taking several hits from an easy enemy on Island 1. Previously, it felt a bit frustrating if you took a lot of damage early on in the biome and it didn't happen to find any health loot to recover. It's also more exciting when you have a smaller health pool that you can skillfully recover rather than a large health pool that just gets whittled down over time until you get eliminated unceremoniously. NoScrub with the absolutely creative use of unceremoniously. This is no longer a patch notes video. This is NoScrub really critiquing how beautiful NoScrub's language is. And we're joined by the cat. Aww. We're joined by the cat Connie. What are you doing here? This is beautiful. Now, NoScrub has always famously said the damage zone is when you are constantly a few shots away from death. And he always brings this up. So here it says, while also being able to recover health by playing a certain way. I strongly believe that the danger zone is where the fun lies, and the constant and the changes in this update will make playing, especially the early game, more enjoyable and consistent, rewarding skill and reducing the impact of small mistakes. Full stop. I'm going to stop saying that. Moving forward. Yeah, look, I'm completely with noise. This was always a horrible feeling. The amount of people that I've watched on stream that take a bit of damage at the beginning are like, well, we're lost. There's a YouTuber that I've watched before that used to make that running joke of gets hit in the first 1 or 2 biomes. He's like, well, I don't think this run's going to go too well. So, yeah. Great stuff. So you get a regeneration chest straight off rip. Base max health has been increased from 150 to 250. The reason for that is now health, in a minute we're going to read, health is going to be more difficult to get. You can no longer die in a single hit that deals damage greater than 85% of your max health at once. This should prevent frustrating situations where you are eliminated instantly out of nowhere. Note that this only applies if you have max health of 10 or higher when one hit challenge modifier is not active. This is great. Definitely had it happen to me. It also means if you do take a mass amount of damage very quickly, you can then heal up. So it might even be a bit of a yo-yo effect. I've definitely had that in one of my runs where you take 85% of your damage, you're down to low health, but then you heal almost instantly back up because of, Grim Reaper or Regenerator or whatever it is. So that's really, really good that that's now just added into the game. Max health loot has been reworked and simplified. No more hard to understand behavior when picking up glass cannon, woohoo! Where future max health gains were reduced by an unknown amount. The new system makes all max health related loot affect one of 2 stats: base max health and max health multiplier. Parts have been replaced by the mango and bananas perks, as I want to remove all consumable loot in the game as possible. It's just more fun to be able to salvage later instead of being one-off buff. A one-off buff. I did speak about this in my previous video. Base max health and max health multiplier. These are now 2 things in the game that you can look at in your inventory. Really easy to understand. Your base max health is there. That's your base max health. And then the multiplier is times by that. So 100 health times by 2, 200 health, 1,000 health times by 2, you've got 2,000 health. It's so much better to do and so much easier to understand, especially if you do get something like Glass Cannon, where it's now going to show the reduction on your multiplier. So that's going to be really helpful to understand. Right, so let's look at some of these more interesting buffs. So Regenerator now heals 4 times as fast 4 times per second compared to previous once per second to make it more satisfying to build into. It also heals for 60 seconds per island, up from previous 45 seconds. Regenerator is probably one of the stronger healing perks at the moment that I've found, just because it's constant and also it stops doing it once you're healed up. So that's really, really nice. Endurance now heals at the start of the island instead of the end and is buff deal 125. Also pretty good. It's up from 40. I didn't even read that part. Endurance is also pretty good. I'm still a bigger fan of Regenerator, but Endurance can be pretty good. Slippery Slope now triggers before Endurance to allow a nice synergy. Great, beautiful buff. Grim Reaper no longer heals a percentage of your max health and instead heals a flat amount per elimination. But medium enemies heal 2 times as more. Large enemies heal 5 times as more. And elite and bosses heal 10 times more. This is a necessary change due to the new health system. It's way too easy to become basically invincible on islands with a decent max health pool and Grim Reaper. Yeah, really, really good. So the way Grim Reaper works now, I believe it heals for like 10 or 20 per kill on the smaller enemies, and then it's times by 2, 5, or 10, depending on the monster you're killing. Grim Reaper is still very, very strong. It's just not as strong as it once was. So this is a slight nerf, but it's also quite a good buff in terms of how it's going to work with all enemies. So yeah, definitely worth picking up. Joined by the cat again. Clearly, you here to help me with these patch notes, hey? Here to help me with these patch notes? Vampire now works the same way as Grim Reaper. healing reduced for smaller enemies and increased for larger, removing the underwhelming feeling of meleeing a large group and getting 3 health. You now heal 30. Pretty good. Vampire. Yeah, I mean, with Katana, the vampire perk is pretty decent. It's not as strong as others, but if you're going a huge melee build, vampire is basically essential. Limited heals difficulty modifier has been removed as it made healing perks in general more confusing. Why am I not healing the amount advertised? And could be cancelled out with a single Anvil resin, which made it weak and a boring modifier. Yeah, great. With the now focus on healing, limited heals definitely counterproductive to what he's trying to get the player to do. So really glad that that's been removed. Amber resin is now epic rarity. Since it scales all healing sources, it was extremely powerful compared to just leveling up one source of healing over and over, so it deserves to be a high rarity. Yeah, absolutely. Amber resin definitely need to be changed. You would get amber resin and another healing perk and just skyrocket with amber resin. And if you pick up Grim Reaper, yeah, you're winning. Amber resin is still super strong. And if you're not picking it up, you always should, especially now with this new meta that we're looking into. But yeah, amber resin being epic rarity, I would 9 times out of 10 pick it up, because it's not just helping one perk, it's helping all of the healing perk. And this includes everything in Tony's shop. This includes when you're getting any max health modifiers and things like that. It's just going to be really helpful. So it doesn't increase your base health or anything like that, but it does just scale really well with everything. Added new healing loot tag. Amber resin will now only show up if you have a healing perk. This helps reduce useless options from health chest early game. Cool, thanks, great. A healing chest now spawn after clearing elite islands, been replaced with health chests, and armor has been re-added to the health chest pool. That's good as well. So now, yeah, the focus really is around buffing the amount of health increasing or healing items you can get, which is great. Remove big hearts. It's no longer relevant. The hearts are no longer in the game anymore. So can I just get a big F for big hearts? It's so funny how that went from being something no one ever picked up to literally game breaking. I do remember seeing it and being like, this is terrible. And then trying it a couple times and be like, well, no, this is the new meta. So yeah, big F to big hearts. And added a total health healed stat in inventory UI for Grim Reaper, regenerated health shot, vampire, scavenger, and endurance. I really love seeing that sort of thing, especially when you're in the shop and you're trying to weigh up what to buy. I'm definitely looking at, hey, should I get rid of this item so I can pick that up, or should I do this to that? So really important, the total health healed. You can now see where the healing is coming from so that you can choose the right perk or even mod to get rid of. So that's really nice of Noisestorm to add in. Okay, so general added multiplayer revive system. It's a bit clunky. You just stand in in a circle and heal, but it's really good to finally have that. There's nothing worse than, and then I've experienced this myself, where your friend goes in and dies, and then you've got to deal with the entire island. It hasn't even been 2 seconds yet. Really frustrating. Now you can revive your friend, you can keep going, especially on bosses where there is a little bit of time. And the way it works is that you stand in the circle, it slowly gets bigger and bigger. If you leave that circle, the timer goes down a little bit, but it decays really slowly. And then your friend pops up alive with a bit of immunity once you've done that. So it's a really good revival system, which is great. Added new weapon mod, beam shot. Yeah, you've seen my beam shot. It's awesome. We've got the time explosion. Abilities deal more damage, but dealt over time. Iron explosion. Abilities deal more damage, but have a longer cooldown. So similar to the iron melee. Targeting explosion. Abilities that deal direct damage spawn copies that target nearby enemies. I can see this being really strong with something like thorn explosion or dagger explosion, or even bubble explosion. I think it's called bubble explosion. Anyway, that'd be really good. A split explosion, chance for ability to split into 4 copies while in the air. That's very fun. So it's kind of like triple explosion, but that's going to be really interesting. Accelerating ability. Abilities deal more damage, but start slowing accelerate over time. This could be really cool. We've got Full Metal Jacket, so FMJ perk is removed and replaced with Full Metal Jacket, which is a relic. All damage penetrates enemy armor. This to me, I feel like it's just gonna go. I'm glad it's a relic, but if I see that, like, the ant's not gonna stand a chance. And and no enemy is going to stand a chance. So yeah, I've not seen it yet. I've not tried it. I'm excited to, but I'm also sad that things like explosive armor and flammable armor are probably not going to be picked up if I find this, but pretty cool. Full Metal Jacket Relic. I love the name as well. And we've got another new melee mod, Time Claws. Melee damage increased, but damage dealt over time. Arcane Claws. Finally, we've got some Arcane Claws. Melee arcanifies enemies. I'm going to talk about the katana when it comes up, but there's a few things that I really do want to talk about the katana, just so you're aware. A new perk, Elemental Specialist. Damage increased to enemies if they have exactly one debuff. This is really strong. This is something that you definitely need to think about when you are going through your runs, whether you focus on one element or multiple. If you're just doing one, then absolutely pick this up. I believe it's about a 75 or a 50% damage increase, which in the grand scheme of things, if you're able to rapidly get your element out onto all of your targets very quickly with like an aura or a melee attack, then you're looking at increased damage. Or even if you've got like a mod that's doing it for you, definitely worth it. So yeah, definitely something to keep a lookout for. We have the new perks, Mango and Banana. The Banana, yeah, it's different from the consumable one. These now sit as perks in your inventory, so they're going to be at the bottom. So you now kind of need to think about, 2 open slots, one for Mango, one for Banana in every single run. We have the new relic, the Blacksmith Ring. You can choose 2 enhancements on Anvil Islands. This is really, really strong. I mean, essentially, you're getting, a secondary chest, and you can have 2 enhancements. And now that you can have 8 enhancements, it's really, really nice to just pick this one up and just keep in your inventory, especially if you've got a good weapon mod build going. Blacksmith Ring, gain 2 more Anvil choices. Very similar to something like Big Chest or Coral Amulet. And also there is rarity scaling within your anvils. So you can get rare and legendary relics, which are a lot stronger. Add a new relic, Ring of Vigor, max health multiplier increased by 3% after clearing each island. I think if you see something like this early, pick it up. If maybe late game, not so great, but yeah, it's a very strong relic. We've got the Upgrade Ring. All chests are guaranteed to contain duplicate loot where possible, but the amount of loot choices in the chest is reduced by 1. Cool, great. Look, I think this is something that I've used, especially if you've got like a Coral Amulet or a big chest and it's already helping you with loot. Definitely worth picking up, especially for duplicate loot. There is loot waiting. There's a video on loot waiting that'll be on the screen. Now, I won't get into that, but I think that the upgrade ring's pretty strong. Add a new relic, Arcane Ring. Arcane Strength increase and max Arcane stacks increase to 250%. No downside yet until Elementals are added, but Arcane is underperforming a bit anyway. So why not? Of course, Noise Storm. Why not? Let's buff Arcane. It doesn't make it top tier now, but it does make it stronger, so definitely worthwhile. Add new Greed Relic, the Ring of Favoritism. If you have exactly 1 chance-based enhanceable mod in your inventory, it is 1,000 times more likely to trigger. When I get this in my next run, I really want to show it, but really, really super strong Greed Relic. Let's say you're rocking Bubble Shot, and you've got like a Drill Shot and a few others. If you drop Drill Shot and the few others you have and just have Bubble Shot, it's 1,000 times more likely to trigger. So essentially it just forces you to use one weapon mod and focus everything into that and just scale that up. Really, really strong. It pretty much takes your chance for something to trigger from let's say 10% to 1,000%, more like 100%. Definitely really, really fun if you want to try out the Ring of Favoritism. I have done it in some of my runs on stream, but not anything, concise in a video that I want to put out yet. Added a new Greed Relic, Overspill Goblet. Critical hit chances halved, but also added to critical hit damage multiplier. Sharpshooter and Hot Shot now scale linearly. Can go over 100% synergize with this. Significant buff to critical hit chance, as there used to be diminishing returns as you got close to 100% hit chance. So, the critical goblin is here. Did he call it a goblet because I'm a goblin or what? So now what happens is if your critical chance goes over 100%, you now have a Greed Relic that you can look at. Now, essentially, if you have 100%, you pick this up, your critical chance will go down to 50, and then that damage is going to be added to the critical hit damage multiplier. So it does mean it's a pretty good buff to crit, and it does mean that your Ring of Wisdom will forever be useful in those longer runs. This does feel like something that I would pick up in my late game runs. I don't do them too often, but it definitely would be something I'd be looking for, because yeah, if you're constantly adding more and more crit and you're getting over 100%, being able to just add that to the damage multiplier is awesome. So really, really nice. We've got another relic, the Time Ring. I have used this bad boy a few times now. Time Ring with Time Shot, Time Explosion, the Time Melee ability with chipping. Really, really good. Just 400% increased damage. Like, are you kidding me? Absolutely insane amount of damage. So Time Shot is a thing that I will usually pick up on most rounds with all weapons. And having the Time Ring to have that increased damage is definitely significant. So worth it. We have 3 new enemies, the Elite Beam Skull, the Elite Landmine Limpet, and the Barrage Skull. Not a fan of the Barrage Skull. I think it's a bit loopy, but the Elite Landmine Limpet and the Elite Beam Skull are pretty fun to fight against. Added new difficulty modifier. Now for the Diamond Runners, you need to listen right now. Ambushing enemies and Elite spawns on the 3rd island of each biome. You need to now be aware that on every 3rd island, you're going to be seeing an elite enemy. That could be an elite lightning crab. That could be an elite fire crab. That could be an elite poison grub. Even one of these two right here. You need to be ready for that. And you need to just be conscious that a large portion of the space in whatever island you're on is going to be occupied by an elite. Now, what I've usually done is I've just focused down the elite so I can focus on all the trash around it. But you might want to do the opposite, focus the trash down and then just have the elite solo. They are a lot weaker because it's only island 3 and they're scaled. But just be aware that this could be something that's going to stop you from progressing. So just be aware of that. Elites and bosses now use a new health bar with their current and max health as a number under their name. It's just a UI update, but very, very cool looking. And I'm really glad Noise has kind of added that because it adds a little bit more spice to, oh, this is actually a boss. Sheesh, gotta focus it. Added a new tropical island with deep water. Yes, it's very nice. It's a nice 2 islands, as it were, and they've got big deep water underneath. Added an auto slide feature that makes sliding happen automatically when you land, which makes the game more comfortable to play for long periods of time. You can still manually slide at any time when on the ground and disable the auto slide functionality in the settings menu if you want. Slide distance has been doubled. Yes, it has. The speed is the same, but slide distance is doubled. That's also great. Noise Storm has made it so main weapon damage calculations happen separately while keeping the optimizations for other types of damage, things like drill shot. This means money shot, critical hits, and elemental damage will now roll per pellet on shotguns and other multi-projectile weapons, as well as spawn individual damage numbers, which makes it feel way better. I am pretty sure this is how it used to be. This is how it used to be. So this stuff here is per pellet, and then you've got the other types of stuff, things like drill shot and those mods. So it just essentially it's gone back to the way it used to be, where it's per pellet rather than, or per bullet, I should say, rather than per damage spawn. So pretty good optimization from Noise. Rare rarity has been renamed to common rarity. It didn't make sense for the loot for you to find it all be called rare. Okay. The Waves Island type has been removed as it wasn't distinct enough from the Arena Islands, while also having a don't get hit gimmick already covered by the Flawless Blessing or the one hit challenge modifier. Each island type should be distinct. This wasn't really doing enough to feel different. Totally agree. The only times I would pick Waves is if I wanted to skip an island or if I was just decimating everything, but mostly because I wanted to skip islands. I do feel bad for the speedrunners that Waves is no longer going to be a thing that they can just skip. At the same time, it wasn't very fun. The Harvest Island has been removed from the portal pool and been reworked as a blessing for Horde Islands. This is great. The way it works now is that there are just giant circles with a crystal on top, and you can run into those crystals and get a lot of crystals from it in those harvest zones. It is worth it, and I'm going to say that right now. The amount of times I've done these harvests and I've got a lot of crystals, totally worth it because you get so much from it. So definitely try and do those harvest blessings. So yeah, add new blessings, capture the zones. We've also got new blessing, Knives Out. Enemies drop 5 times crystals. It's eliminated with melee weapons on the island. Now, because I've usually done Knives Out early in the run, I haven't seen too much from it, but 5 times crystals when eliminated could be pretty big if you're rocking a melee build and you're just swinging and killing everything. So I look forward to seeing some people having some fun with that one. Added new challenge modifier, no healing. Healing is disabled for this island. Yeah, I mean, be smart with how you want to do this. If you're already at full health and you're clearing things quickly, yeah, great. You can go for it, but if you're pretty weak, not really worth it. Remove the healing enemies challenge as it was more tedious than challenge. Thank you, Noise Storm. Thank you very much for getting rid of that. I remember when it first came out and enemies would heal within like 3 seconds of being hit. It was the worst, but I'm glad that's now gone. Regenerating enemies difficulty modifier has been removed as it was not fun to be spectating the last player alive, so chip away enemies that regenerate health. I've moved the same functionality to a regenerating buff that can apply to enemies if you have buff any modifiers on. Cool. Great. That's fine. Added new mango and banana icons visuals. Thank you, Noidstorm. That's something I asked for because I hated just seeing the name mango and no mango. Improved various lighting presets, the dawn and sunset on the tropical biome to be much more brighter and colorful to match the mood. Aww. Added enemy hit reaction animations. I really like that. You know, the crowd's getting hit, it's like, stop it. Yeah, really fun. Increase the visual size of most hard enemies to make it more obviously stand out, being tanky and scary enemies. Yes, the ants are huge. Added skull and crab noise sounds. Death sounds. Really, really cool. Added new and more responsive crosshairs with consistent outlines regardless of spread value. Great. Made a big visual pass on all VFX to be much less busy for people streaming or making videos about the game. Should help with compression and generally make the game more enjoyable to play watch on smaller screens. Noidstorm jumped into my stream last week and saw the game pause for 4 seconds. He asked for me to send him a copy of the save so that he could take a look into why. It's definitely a problem when you're streaming and recording for the VFX to be mental. So I'm really glad he's making these efforts to not to help streamers and stuff, but you know, just to help with compression, because yeah, there are some clips I have online that there's too much going on the screen and my face, well, I just look like a mush heap. But anyway, thanks for this. Added new turret visuals, removed the high score system as it was more of a test of patience, plus luck as an indicator of skill. There are better metrics to show off when you complete a run. This is fine, like the score system's gone, the combo system's still there, but the high score system is gone. Absolutely fair. It's a little bit of a shame because there are a few of us that often look at it. But if I'm playing with some of the best players, like I'm going to be like, well, my high score is better than your high score. And, you know, maybe we should look at a few other things. Who's dying or I don't know, who's getting the most eliminations. But anyway, added 6 new achievements and 2 new skins. I can't wait to have a look at them a bit later. So originally I was going to go ahead and talk about the detailed patch notes from the forum beta, but honestly, I had a quick look through and they're not actually that important. Now, you can go look at them if you want on that patch note, but they are from December and a lot of things have kind of changed. We're going to read through these notes here because they're way more important and essential. I think the biggest thing, just to really mention, is elemental damage is now affected by your global damage modifier. This is a very big change, and I think the good thing that the Noidstorm has done is that you'll read later on that a lot of the global damage has gone down, and elemental damage being affected by global damage is a buff. So it's kind of, even though things have been brought down, it's also been raised a little bit higher. So the elemental builds are now, you know, somewhat essential, not fully into, you know, a fire lightning build or an ice and poison build, but actually having something is really important, especially when you're going into the later game. Damage fall off no longer affects elemental damage, so that's a nice buff, especially for mods to create elemental areas under enemies, like skulls, and those were ineffective previously. And we are going to get into why some of the new legendary, also the older legendary elementals are so good. Expensive shop price reduced from 100 to 50. This means you can buy roughly around 3 common items now, which is great. Eternal punishment, max health penalty reduced by 50%, so taking damage at 200% will now only remove 1 max health instead of 2. Thank you very much. That's always nice. A little less pain as you're going through, or eternal punishment. An arena island is now guaranteed on islands that previously offered horde portal choices. This makes speedrunning much less luck-based. Increase the time window that the game counts as a one-shot elimination from 0.1 seconds to 0.25 seconds. Large islands are now chosen for the 5th island on the biome for more variety. This does include all the horde ones, so the big horde islands are now in there as well, so that's great. So yeah, a bit more variety, which is nice. Since it's much easier to regenerate health, spike chests now take 25% of your base max health instead of 40% of your current health to balance this out. The upside of this change is you'll be able to open any number of spike chests on a single island. Let me explain. Now, when you have a spike chest, it takes away your base max health, and you'll be able to go to your inventory and see that. So no longer is it, I need 100% of my health and it just takes away the current amount. It takes away the base. So it's more significant. So if you have 100, takes away 25%, that's 25 health. It's taking away from your base, which leaves you with 75 health total. So really, like, in reality, it's really good. The alternative reality is it's probably better at lower health to take it rather than higher health. But is a lot less scary now. It's not like the next island you're going to have hardly any health. You need to heal up quickly. It's more that just your max health is going down. So this right here is a really, really big change. I'm really glad he's added that in. A common ask was to make post-diamond looping, which is Island 57 Plus, more enjoyable by having a steeper scaling to really test the limits of your build instead of steamrolling everything without any challenge. I've greatly increased the scaling here, so ideally the game will be able to keep up for much longer and make late game runs more enjoyable. I've tested this out as someone who has done a lot of diamond runs, over 500 now. I tested this out to Island 200. It did get harder on my first attempt. I think I got to Island 70 something and died from damage. And then afterwards I was able to get to 200. But yeah, it really is a big change, which is great. Armor now clears all debuffs from broken, so a large amount of fire can no longer burn through your precious plates one by one. This is huge. I can't tell you the amount of times I've been in a situation where I get one bit of fire damage, and because of the scaling and everything like that, it just burns through all the plates. So huge, clears all debuffs. It will also clear all debuff of poison. If you're sitting in poison, you take damage. And the way armor works is that when you do take damage, it just gets rid of one entire plate. So really, really huge. Thank you, Noisestorm. Combo is no longer reset on a hit that breaks armor, only hits after when you have no armor. That's also a really nice change. So you lose all of your armor. Usually you would then lose your combo. Now it's that hit after losing armor, which is great. I didn't realize how completely broken the key progression is if playing on Nightmare as a new player. You get 56 keys minimum on a loot victory, and that isn't counting things like double keys and quad keys dropping from the chest. Since a new unlock of the key totem is only 3 keys, this kind of kills the satisfying unlock progression that was originally intended. So I've made an adjustment to 1 extra key per key pickup buff. Now only applies when playing Ultra Chaos, as you're likely to burn through a lot of keys, and boss spawns 2 keys instead of 3 as a buff for long runs. Keys now drop for 2 more loops since loop scaling is more challenging. Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting on a lot of keys at the moment just because I've played so much. But yeah, it doesn't really affect gameplay, but for newer players, I think it's going to be really nice progression for them to not get heaps of keys at once. I have definitely carried people through diamond to get them keys. Shops are now 50% cheaper on easy difficulty, as the reduced amount of enemies made it actually quite hard to make some meaningful purchases at the shop, especially in the earlier game. Yeah, nice for the easy players. Removed per player shop price scaling in multiplayer. This makes prices in solo multiplayer consistent, so it makes shop feel much more fair multiplayer runs. 100%, this is great. When I was playing multiplayer with friends and we'd get to shop and we'd have to drop each other all of our crystals to get one thing, really painful. This does mean that multiplayer scaling will be a little bit easier, especially if you can all buy things. But yeah, really nice change. The reduction in the reroll totem cost by 50%, a chance to explode from 20 to 15. Great, beautiful, love it. Thanks, Noise. Health rocks can now be destroyed with melee and make it less likely for enemies to break them. This is meant as a buff to the Ring of Healing, so you can more reliably play around them. Max health rocks do not have this protection, as they are more valuable. So the green health rocks that you can get spawning into the island with the Ring of Healing, they are now only broken through melee attacks. So this means you don't have to worry about not shooting around them or not having enemies around them. All you have to do is run into them with a melee attack and they'll spawn. Really great buff, and actually means, you know, Noisestorm wants you to heal. The worst thing is when you like move enemies away from it and a stray bullet hits that health rock, and then you have to run over there quickly and try and get the health. Now this does only work with the healing one, not with the max health rock, but this is way more important, and there's more synergy with the Ring of Healing compared to the max health rocks that, you know, can get broken. So nope, lovely change. There have been lots of discussions about how discounted infinite pedestals instantly break the balance of the game, since you can sell all your existing inventory and just invest into a powerful mod at a heavy discount. While fun, I do agree this is way too much. You scaled on 2 powerful axes at once. Many levels of a good mod add a discounted price for each of them. Too much of a power spike at once. The solution is pretty simple. Infinite pedestals can no longer be discounted. I am all about this. I'm really happy he's done this. Was it fun to have a discounted infinite pedestal? Yes, it was. But you could skyrocket way too quickly. So yeah, now that's going to be kind of a flat amount, and we'll go up by a flat amount as you buy more. But yeah, definitely agree. Really good change to have in there. So infinite pedestal is still going to be very strong. Don't get me wrong. But it does mean that you're not going to be able to absolutely snowball, which is great. Moving on into the weapon balance changes. Arcane Wand has been reworked. It now lobs a projectile that feels a bit more distinct from the rocket launcher. Love that. Love that. I'm so excited to play the Arcane one. Arcane 1 damage increased from 20 to 25 and radius increased by 20%. And starting Arcane shot level increased from 1 to 2. These are beautiful buffs. Holy moly. Reduced recoil. Actually, I'm not even going to talk about it. Arcane 1. So 25. So similar to Seagull. And the radius increased by 20% and starting. Ooh, we're going to look good. Arcane 1 fans are eating right. And also there has been the new change to the way it looks. So we're eating good. Could potentially be one of the strongest starting weapons based on this damage. And the Arcane shot too. Anyway, reduced recoil on most weapons. I did A/B tests and the game feels a lot better with less external forces move the camera since you're already moving and turning the camera constantly. This also reduces motion sickness and makes aiming feel more consistent. Cool. I haven't really realized anything or noticed anything, but I think for some people that maybe have a bit more of jarring experience with it, it's probably pretty good. Dual shotgun damage increased from 6 to 8. Base spread reduced by 40% and projectile range increased by 25%. This is so for many players, the dual shotgun is their kryptonite, and then there's also the other side, which is for many of us. We love the dual shotguns. The increased damage to 8 is a significant buff. For example, you now pick up any weapon mod that's going to give 50% increased damage. You're looking at 4 damage, which is the same as a sharp shot. So now dual shotguns are going to have a great time regardless of what weapon mod they pick up. The base spread reduced as well. Great. That means that your pellets are going to hit every time. And the projectile range increased by 25%. This does push dual shotguns up. I mean, they were never weak. Like 6 damage with 5 pellets, I believe. It's strong. It's very strong. So dual shotgun's got a significant buff, which is really good. So we'll have to see. I have to test it out. Rocket launcher damage increased from 50 to 75, but radius reduced by 10. This should make more consistent in the early game, especially against tanky single targets. Yeah, rocket launcher needed a buff. Put me on fire. Cancel me for this, but I thought rocket launcher was probably one of the worst weapons in the game. The AoE is great, but they take a while to get going. People always said it was the best weapon. It's really not. A single target sucked, and especially against skulls or anything flying, you're having a bad time. But no, this is a great buff, 75%. That means that all weapon mods apart from sharp shot are going to be really good on it. Blade launcher fire rate, and the same blade launcher here, reduced by 50% to start at a more natural feeling cadence, but damage increased to compensate. The damage buff ended up increased damage from 75 to 100% damage overall. I've used the blade launcher a lot. It still feels just as good, and the fire rate doesn't really make too much of a difference. In actual fact, it feels a little bit better and more consciously firing. So I think this is fine. It didn't really make too much of a difference, and it does increase the DPS overall. Cluster launcher base max ammo increased from 6 to 10. That's great. More bullets and more pepperoni to fire out. Flame thrower mod trigger chance increased by 18%. That's not significant, but you know, it's a slight buff, which is great. Doubled the radius of flamethrower fire arrows to more reliably hit floating enemies, but slightly reduced the chance of spawning these fire arrows. Overall, it should feel more consistent. That's great. Made various improvements on how orbiting works, faster orbiting and a more consistent height. It also works better with the ice staff and floats nicely down to the ground height instead of being useless in the sky. Cool. Okay, great. I mean, orbiting is always something that you'd pick on certain items, not on others. So I look forward to seeing how that works on the ice staff, which was consistently bad. Right, moving on into weapon mod balance changes. There's a lot here. So link shot, drill shot, targeting shot, proximity barrage, and homing blades can now trigger when there are no enemies nearby, as this mechanic was confusing before. Yes. It also makes homing blades feel way better as they home to the original enemy anyway, so it didn't make sense to require multiple enemies to be nearby for them to trigger. This is great, and I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen a friend pick up a drill shot or link shot, they go to hit the timer like, well, my damage hasn't gone up because there's no enemies nearby. This is great, and you will find that these mods are way stronger, especially with enhancements. You get sticky on any of these, especially drill shot and link shot. Rather than spawning out into the enemy, they will stay stuck and they'll just do the damage. You're looking at some absolutely heinous damage. So really nice change. Moving on, booming shot and returning enhancements will now return to the location of the projectile spawned rather than homing to the player that fired the shot. This means a lot of interesting combinations possible, like the rocket launcher with boomerang shot and split shot. These split shots will fly off and then turn around and rain back to the original explosion like artillery. There have been so many videos that have been put onto the Discord channel of people doing this. If you're not part of the Discord, please do join the Crab Champions Discord. I don't have my own and I probably never will, but there's so many clips of fun stuff you can do. Orbiting shot and the orbiting enhancement now orbit at their spawn locations. This makes them much more viable choices in general, not requiring for you to be close to enemies to deal damage. This is good. I think this, depending on the weapon and stuff like that, yeah, so we'll have to see how it works for certain weapons, but yeah, orbiting has been changed a bit. Ice, fire, lightning, poison, arcane shot now have the same chance to trigger. This is beautiful. That was one of the most frustrating things where you pick up an ice and it was like 1%, you pick up poison, it was like 4%. Now they've got the same chance to trigger, which is great, kind of balancing them all together. Firework shot and firework explosion now honed towards enemies, making them finally useful. The firework shot and firework explosion were always pretty good, especially when you remove the knockback, but having them home in is also really nice. Increase pumpkin shot projectile lifetime. It is lifetime and add a slight home to make it more consistent. Yeah, pumpkin shot probably one of the weaker weapon mods, but with the homing effect, it's actually pretty good. Improved homing blade, thorn shot, spinning blade, and torpedo shot homing logic to be much more reliable. Great. These are great balance changes. Health shot no longer has a cooldown and scales to heal the amount with the base weapon fire rate. So, health shot no longer just heals 1 HP every time you hit them with your bullet. It scales with the amount of base weapon fire rate. So, if you have something like the sniper or rocket launcher, you wouldn't really pick up health shot because it was pretty bad. Like, you shoot 1 sniper bullet every few seconds or every second or so. That means you're doing 1 health per second. Pretty bad compared to something like the minigun that's firing rapidly and healing you up. Now, the way it's going to work, and it's also the same with the new money shot, it's based on your weapon's fire rate. So the sniper will probably now heal, 10 if you hit rather than 1, which makes stuff like this way more viable. So that's really useful information to know. He hasn't changed sharp shot, by the way. He tried and it didn't work. So I'm just going to say that as well. But just be aware that health shot and money shot have been changed to be more on base weapon fire rate. Spike strike weapon mod damage increased from 200 to 500, but cooldown has been increased from 1 to 3 seconds. There's also a buff to spike strike ability mod, which is the same spikes as the weapon mod, but has no cooldown. I've complained about strikes and storms, and NoScrub has changed these, but I think just the buff to 500 damage is significant, as it will be affected by global damage. You get an additional 100% global, that's 1,000 damage, which is pretty significant, and it's pretty easy to get, more global damage quickly. So yeah, this is really, really nice. I'm looking forward to trialing that out. Proximity barrage pattern reworked and damage increased 50 to 75. Beautiful, great. Homing blades projectile count reduced by 2, but damage increased by 100%. That's fine as well, we like that. Ultra shot projectile speed increased by 40%. Ultra shot is good, finally. I mean, it's always been good, but the speed is great to have. Piercing wave trigger chance increased by 100%. This is great as well because it's probably one of the weaker ones because of just it's slow, doesn't really hit the enemy, it's not single target, but now it's going to do some great waves. So I'm hoping this will be really good on stuff that has bad AoE, so maybe like the Seagull or the Sniper or something like that. So I'm looking forward to testing that out. Accelerating shot no longer requires bouncing shot before it can spawn. That's kind of a good and a bad thing. It means you can pick up accelerating shot early, but it also means that you're going to see accelerating shot more often. Increase the starting speed and double the max speed of projectiles affected by accelerating shot or the accelerating enhancement to make them more reliably hit targets and not feel like the range is too short. Okay, well, he's buffing them at the same time, which is good. That's cool. The max speed, that'd be crazy for certain things. Reload arc added way too much visual spam, so I moved it to use a smaller arc of projectiles, but with double the damage to compensate. Oh, Reload Arc's finally getting a change. I didn't realize Reload Arc had changed, but look, that's good. I mean, smaller arc projectile, that's great, especially if it is a smaller arc, but with the damage doubled. I have done stuff with Reload Arc with enhancements. It's been really, really strong, especially with like targeting or doubling or even homing is really good. So one thing that I've always said to people is do not sleep on what was once rare, but now common enhanceable loot. Ultra shot and time shot, they're significant in their own way, especially ultra shot. I've done a build before on the minigun. I hit 100% ultra shot on the weapon mod, and I was just firing. Every bullet was an ultra shot and just obliterating everything. So don't sleep on these common rarity perks. They are really, really strong, and this is just an additional to reload arc to make it better. So next, all projectile pattern mods, zigzag shot, spiral shot now have fixed patterns, so they don't get larger per level, as this causes them to be practically unusable even if it looks funny. This should make pattern mods a more reliable way to scale weapon damage. This is actually a really, really big deal, and the reason for that is because zigzag shot and spiral shot would usually cause your weapons to just go crazy. They now have a fixed pattern, so it doesn't get larger per level. Now, you can pick up 10 zigzag shot and it will just have that fixed pattern. That's just how it works now. It's not going to be a case of the more zigzag shot you get, the wider the zigzag it's going to be, and same with spiral. This is exciting because it actually means that you can now level into them and deal with a zigzag shot, but also get more damage without living in fear that the next one is going to make it even crazier. So this is a very big change. Does mean that you're going to see a little bit more loot diversity in what you're picking up. X-Shot rarity decreased from legendary to epic. This is great because X-Shot is really, really strong. And also we've now got triple shot, split shot, arc shot, X-Shot, all within the epic variety. Really, really nice. Definitely pick that up if you see it. I would not be surprised if square shot eventually comes into epic as well. Gold dice is now a weapon mod called dice shot. So say 07 to gold dice. It is unchanged in its function other than it affects weapon mods, since there are only 2 ability mods that are chance based and already had high starting chances. So dice shot is very strong, and you should definitely pick it up every time you see it. It increases the percentage chance of all of your weapon mods. So if you're running a build that's using a lot of weapon mods and you see dice shot, it is just a straight buff to everything you have for the likelihood of it operating and working. So definitely get it. All strike and storm mods have been heavily buffed as they didn't feel legendary. I'm just going to fill noise storm in for this one. All strike and storm mods have had their damage increased. I think it's roughly by about 200, if not 300%, as well as the amount of stacks that the enemy are going to get. So stuff like Ice Storm or Poison Strike or whatever, they're now worth it. And I'm saying this right now, they are now worth it. I did a run on stream a couple weeks ago after this change had happened, and I believe it was Fire Strike, and it carried me from Island 1 to about Island 32. It was just so strong. I upgraded it a couple times as well. It is significant in your runs from now on. So it's no longer going to be a case of, oh, there's Lightning Storm and Lightning Strike, they're bad. Pick them up. They are really, really good. Definitely should. Reduce the amount of recoil added by recoil shot by 75% per level, and added a max cap of 200% to make it usable in long runs. Great. So similar to the treatment that zigzag shot and the projectile pattern mods got, recoil shot now has a flat cap. So that's great. Ability balance changes. Rebalance laser beam to be more competitive with other abilities. Much faster tick damage and rate of the laser bubble by shorter duration. Great. Nothing really more to say. Black hole damage tick rate doubled. That's great as well. Black hole, I always thought black hole was probably one of the stronger ones there because it's brilliant across all runs. But yeah, damage tick rate doubled is really good. Replaced fire turret with wave turret and poison turret with beam turret, since any turret can now be enhanced with fire and poison. Damage explosion increased from 150 to 250. This is a significant buff to 250. Sheesh. Pick up something like grenade with 250% ability damage. That's crazy. Crystal spike damage increased from 300 to 400. Great. Injury damage increased from 10 to 20. Great. And big explosion movement speed penalty reduced from 15 to 3. I love this. And I think we're going to see more black hole builds based on big explosion, the speed penalty reduction, because I have been in runs where I've picked up a fair few big explosion for my black hole, and it's just, I've thrown it and it's gone hardly anywhere. So this is a really nice change, and I'm glad he's had that in. Melee weapon balance changes. The dagger damage range increased by 12%. Yeah, this is great. I mean, the dagger is probably one of the least used ones, or maybe the claw, but no, that's really, really good. And pickaxe cooldown reduced from 6 to 5 to be in line with explosion damage radius, also reduced by 15%. So I'm glad this has happened. Pickaxe used to be my favorite. Katana is now top tier in my head, but the pickaxe cooldown being reduced back to 5 is great. Damage exploding long radius, that's not really a massive deal. It's already long enough, but really nice. Melee mod balance changes added a lenient 3-second period after dealing melee damage for eliminations to still count as melee eliminations. This makes vampire and the knives out blessing work on mods like time claws or fire claws. Really good. It definitely needed to happen because yeah, it was always a sucky thing where you'd hit them with melee, you'd land and then they have a slither of health left. Ice, fire, lightning, and poison claws now scale their debuff stacks differently depending on the melee weapon used. For example, with the dagger is unchanged, but the hammer now deals 5 times more debuff stacks to compensate for the longer cooldown. This is really nice because yeah, with someone like dagger, you hit them and I think it applies the stacks per the hit, and same with claw and same with the pickaxe. But the hammer, yeah, you'd hit them once, then you have to wait a little bit longer and then hit them again. So yeah, 5 times more. That's quite a significant buff for these types of these melee mods. One thing I will say, just with the katana, the way that works is if you were to pick up fire claws with your katana, it would be every hit of the katana that you have. So when it spins around, I believe it's roughly 4 to 5 hits, and it will apply those stacks per hit. So I would never sleep on any of these, especially when you are using these kind of fast-paced melee weapons. Try to pick up a poison claws or a lightning or a fire and ice, especially like if you've got elemental specialists. Run around, katana over the top of your enemies. They're now all poisoned. Now you're doing more damage to them. So do not sleep on these claw-like abilities because they are really strong. Perk balance changes, and I think we're getting closer to the end now of all these changes. Increased scavenger chance to trigger from 5% to 10% with healing increase from 25 to 40. But the pickup lifetime has been decreased by 40% as there was little reason to play aggressively to get the pickups previously. Okay, so higher trigger chance, higher increased healing chance, and the pickup lifetime has been decreased. So yeah, scavenger is now guaranteed as well. Didn't read that at the end, but 10% as usual for other enemies. So scavenger is very good. I will admit I really enjoyed the trigger changes and the healing from it. So definitely worthwhile picking up one of the ones that you want to get. I'm a big fan of it because I do prefer to get up close and personal, especially in the early stages of the game. But scavenger is a pretty significant item to pick up, and especially with the buffs that it's got. Remove second wind, 07 to second wind, increase damage when at low health. It's not fun to be at low health for something to activate, and it was just blowing the damage pool. Yeah, great. Gold coating has been re-added into the game, but with a change, it no longer works in shops due to a few strategies that break the game very early previously. Gold coating is also now an epic. It's not a common. So just be aware of that. It is now a gold, a purple item and not a blue item. Slippery slope crystal gain increased by 250%, but the amount of health removed at the start of each island has been increased from 20% to 33%. I think that this is really justified. Slippery slope was pretty bad. It was like a paycheck. It does take a bit more from your health now, but you can now heal it back up pretty quickly, especially with the endurance combo that I spoke about earlier. So that's really nice. Increased toxic max poison stack limit from 25% to 40%. So it adds a nice clean 100% max stacks per level. Really good. Poison is always going to be the best. Not going to lie. It's always going to be the best until it gets a big significant nerf or other ones get stronger. But yeah, really great. The Toxic's going to be doing that. High Roller now correctly affected by the Ring of Luck. Okay, great. Thanks. Yep. Brilliant. That essentially just means that High Roller is now going to work when the Ring of Luck is there and makes it more likely that you're going to see chests rather than not see them. Remove the 2-second cooldown from Dagger Dash. Dagger Dash will now be crazy with stamina. I look forward to seeing how that goes. Crystal Asteroids trigger chance increased from 5% to 25%. I saw this in a run with friends and I was shocked by how often I saw it, and also how often it gave me more than one item or more than one crystal asteroid on an island. Would go 5 islands without seeing anything, and then we'll see one island with 4 extra items. So I don't know if there's a bit of a weird coding glitch going on there, but I'm glad to see that it's been buffed. Paycheck crystal amount increased from 33% to be competitive with other economy options. Yeah, I mean, that's really good. Probably the weakest one now, just so you know, is crystal combo, because you're less likely to have a combo, but paycheck being that strong is really good. Gold coating obviously is going to be great, but bonus crystals right now is probably one of the best ones. I think it's 75% increased crystal gain, so that's really nice. Remove the cooldown, and then this one. Remove the cooldown from exploding, freezing, flammable, electric, and poisonous enemies. They should feel more legendary now. Holy moly, is this an absolutely huge one. Those perks originally, they were good, but not amazing. Now, like, you kill one enemy, if it's exploding and explodes another one, that's just going to have a chain ripple effect. And the same with like poisonous enemies. Like I used to get lingering fumes because it was way better than poisonous enemies, but now it's so good. So these were really good. I'd probably say the stronger ones are flammable, poisonous, and exploding. But yeah, freezing and electric, like it's great. So you're gonna have a really great time with these perks. You really are. As one of the most reported overpowered perks, especially in combination with Time Shot, Critical Blast being reduced from 50 to 35. Yeah, it probably needed it. I mean, it was great. Since the meta of the game, I've shifted less from never get hit more towards a get hit but heal back. I've buffed a few of the flawless related perks. Performance bonus chance for 2 chests when flawlessly clearing, and I'll increase from 25 to 30. Great. Damage combo and crystal combo bonuses increased from 10% to 15%. Also great. High vitality, high health threshold reduced from 85 to 75%. I never really understood why it was 85%, but I'm glad it's now 75, which is in line with, you know, how much damage you'll take from other things. Power slide, fire stacks, and damage doubled. That's going to be fun. I'm pretty sure my buddy 9-Bullet Revolver was really keen on that change, so that's good. Lingering fumes rarity increased from common to epic. Yeah, you absolutely need to change that because that was very strong. A sound and visual effect now plays whenever high rarity loot spawns directly because of streamer loot. There is also now a message that pops up whenever streamer loot triggers, as well as a stat saved in the inventory showing how many pickups have been affected by this run. I don't know if NoScrub mentions this in the patch notes, but streamer loot is now a common item and definitely worth picking up because it's really strong. The way I used to do things is I'd go to a luck island and I would either pick up efficiency or driller, depending on the weapon that I have. Now I go to a luck island to pick up at least one of streamer loot because it's really powerful, and also it's really nice every now and then to get that kind of dopamine hit of a higher rarity item. So definitely pick up at least one streamer loot in every single run. Driller now spawns loot for teammates, and listen to this if you're a multiplayer player, and that also has the driller perk in their inventory, which should balance things out nicely. So previously only one teammate needed to have driller in order to spawn loot for every teammate every time it triggered, which was super unbalanced in comparison to solo runs. Note, if a player doesn't have driller and breaks destructible rock, the game will still try and spawn a pickup using the other team's driller chance. So listen for 1 second. If one player in the game has driller, let's say you're playing with 4 people, they have driller, it now means that there could be a chance for it to proc from any of the teams shooting at any of the rocks for driller to work. Now, if they're the only person with driller, they're the only one who's going to get a piece of pickable loot. But if everyone on the team has driller, they will all get a piece of loot. If 2 people have driller, then those 2 people will have it. 3. So now when you're playing multiplayer, it's definitely worth having driller. The way it did change for a bit of time was everyone needed driller for it to work, and then one person could stack it. But now it's a case where one person can have driller, anyone can shoot a rock or break a rock, and driller can proc, but it'll only be loot for that one person. So very nice change. Tony's Black Card now similarly works to driller multiplier. Instead of choosing the player with the highest discount, it adds all the total discount of all players combined and then divides it by the total number of players who have Tony's Black Card in their inventory. I really like this because one of the most annoying things is in multiplayer when you have to drop an item, they pick it up, and then all this, you know, there'd always be one person be like, oh, I'll take it, or I'll do this. Now, it's not that case. It does mean that you can all have one. It's probably better to drop it anyway, just for, you know, space in your perk slot, but pretty good. And then as per community feedback, gold coding, as I mentioned, has now been moved to an epic rarity. It was one of the strongest ways to balloon your economy, especially with strategies that deliberately dropping mangoes to heal back and rest and get extra income. I'm keeping this strategy in the game as a fun way to optimize your build. Yeah, this is good. I mean, gold coding being epic rarity is really important. Silver lining now only triggers on damage that exceeds 5% of your max health to avoid being able to farm huge amounts of global damage, standing in low damage areas and now healing the damage. Perfectly fine, good buff. And I know that Silver Lining has also been changed slightly to give you more damage. So it was necessary. All right, Relic Balance changes. Relic chests now contain 3 choices. That's great. Increased Relic portal spawn chance by 20%. Also great. Ring of Reinforcement now triggers when you gain armor, including gaining armor from other relics, not just when you explicitly pick it from the ground. This right here is significant. And the reason for that is the Ring of Reinforcement now works with your Ring of Armor. It works with regenerating armor. It works with ethereal armor. I asked NoScrub to add this into the game, and this was a fair few patches ago, because armor was becoming harder to find due to health and healing items being way more important. So now, if you see a ring of reinforcement, all you need to do is find a ring of armor, and you'll pretty much always have 3 plates at the start of every island if you're losing those plates after island, or if you're not getting hit. It is very, very strong, and Ring of Reinforcement is definitely probably one of the best relics you can now get in the game just because of how strong that is. It might get changed eventually down the line, but it's actually not that crazy. Like, the Ring of Reinforcement was always strong anyway, because getting armor and then having 3 plates rather than 1 was good, but totally worth it. And I love that change as well, just because there are a few of us that are pretty old school and we like to go for armor rather than health. So no, really, really strong. Horde has been moved from a perk that already works similar to double vision to become a unique relic. You can now pick up all loot in the chest, but can no longer drop pickups from re-inventory or salvage loot. So I believe Hoarder is now called the Hoarder's Backpack. It's really, really fun. I haven't had a run with it yet, but I've watched my friends. So what you can do is you can pick up all the loot in the chest, but you can't drop things from your inventory or salvage them. So just imagine you've got a big chest, so you get, you know, some more items. Let's say you got 10 items in there. You can take all 10 items in there, but you can't salvage and you can't drop. You might want to only take 2 items, or you might want to take 3. You might not have enough space, but it is a really, really fun thing to do. You can be so greedy. And especially my friend who I was playing with, shout outs to Jessie's, she had big chest, I think, times 6. So she was taking everything out of the chest and just ballooned. It was incredible. So I'm really glad that that's been changed. The poison ring now affects the max stacked poison limit, which is good. So that's a good buff for poison ring. Ring of rocket jumping now only triggers when you deliberately rocket jump by exploding something at your feet. Distant enemies will no longer knock you back. So it's now a much more purposeful mechanic. I've never been the biggest fan of Ring of Rocket Jumping just because I don't really find the use for it, especially if you're not using grenade or rockets. I do feel like it should just be something added into the game where when you shoot down with your rockets, it should just send you up. I feel like you should just have that TF2 thing, but no, I think it's pretty good, and I'm glad that's been changed to be more meaningful. Combo ring can now only show up when you have a combo perk to avoid bloating the loot pool. Yeah, really solid. On the flip side, it was really annoying when you'd see it, but you wouldn't have damage combo or crystal combo. But now, if you do have crystal combo or damage combo, you'll see combo ring, which is good. Reworked the ring of healing from fully healing into the shop to spawning guaranteed health rocks on each island. We've already spoken about this, but it was a bit OP, ring of healing. The fact that you can walk into a shop and be at full health because you can go from nothing to, 100,000. And the fact that guaranteed health rocks that can only be broken by a melee attack is really, really strong. Ring of Fury rarity increased from common to epic. This is really good. Well, it's a nerf, but Ring of Fury is multiplicative and it's not additive. So it was always really, really strong. Being in the epic category, it's definitely still worth it. So if you have 1,000 global damage, 50% from Ring of Fury will take it to 1,500 damage. So yeah, good to be in the epic side. Ring of Wisdom increased from common to epic. I completely didn't realize that was put in this beta. So just be aware now that Ring of Wisdom has been nerf buffed. So it's now 2% increased on critical hit chance, but it is now epic. Still really, really good. Like, don't knock it. Like, if you can get it before the end of the first loop, then great. But yeah, you're not going to see it straight off rip. So that's why you get streamer loot, because you're going to see it. And Turbo Ring was hugely outperforming other fire rate mods, so it's been moved to epic rarity, and the fire rate increase per island decreased from 3 to 2%. Previously, it was giving 120% fire rate after 40 rounds, which is the equivalent of 10 rapid fire mods for the price of 1. The new value gives 80%, which is more in line, but still powerful. So yeah, agree, Turbo Ring was crazy, so that's been changed. Moving into enemy balance changes, enemies no longer spawn in boring and unpredictable ways one by one. Easy enemies and hard enemies after. They spawn in randomized packs, which makes fights feel much more interesting and dynamic. Great. Rebalance enemy spawn weights and counts for more variety between waves to make biomes feel less linear. Also, harder enemies show up slightly later into a biome to allow for more contrast between early and late biome spawns. So yeah, this is essentially saying that harder enemies are going to show up island 4, 5 rather than straight off rip. So that's good. Increase maximum amount of spawn enemies allowed at once, 45 to 50 on normal, 60 to 100 nightmare and ultra chaos difficulties. Great. Enemies no longer have 50% resistance to elemental debuffs stacked when armored. Players still have this resistance. Thank you very much. Elemental enemies no longer have 25% resistance to their element. That's a great nerf to all of the lightning crab haters. Exile totem now doubles the amount of enemies instead of tripling them. This is really important because, yeah, now exile totems are worth it. With new mixed enemy spawns mentioned earlier, this means that XL Islands will have more intense without feeling tedious. This makes XL Horde Islands twice as long instead of 3 times as long. I just want to say this straight away, that with the new way the game is, XL totems are scary. Even though you're looking at it, it's like, oh, well, that's a nerf. It is still scary, especially with the way that weighting works. It is tough. So just be conscious of that. XL totems aren't even freer now. It is still hard. Enemy health increase per wave on Horde biomes, islands, decreased from 25% to 5%. This should make XL Hordes feel way more enjoyable to play instead of enemies becoming bullet sponges. Slightly reduce the amount of bonus enemy spawns on 2x challenge islands to improve pacing. Starfish launch attack hitbox and animation have been improved to be more consistent and fair. It still sucks. It's just hard. Starfish, I don't like starfish. Pufferfish are larger, healthier, and have a larger explosion radius to help differentiate them from regular small slugs. Yep, that's cool. They're just big. Pumpkin health reduced by 25% and time between attacks increased by 33%. Thank you very much. Pumpkins are probably the more annoying enemies because they shoot where you're going, not shoot where you are. So yeah, good that they're weaker and the time between attacks decreased. Shotgun crab projectile lifetime reduced by 50% and projectile speed reduced by 25%. Yep, thank you. They were pretty much like snipers. Sniper crab projectile has less gravity and slightly more speed in order to perform better at range, be more snipery. Sniper crabs are the scariest enemy in the game at the moment, and I say that with full confidence. I have lost more runs from sniper crabs on my stream when testing things out than in any other time. So just be aware of that. Just be very aware that the sniper crab, sniper crabs in general are tough. Minigun crab projectile speed reduced, great, and minigun crabs that have a spawn limit of 2, great. Minigun crabs also pretty scary, but yeah, now the projectile speed limit has been, projectile speed is reduced, that's great. Laser crabs and hammer crabs have a spawn limit of 4. I'm loving these limitations that NoScrub's been adding in. There's been some really frustrating times where you see 6 or 7 homing grubs or minigun crabs, really frustrating, so I'm glad there's now a limit. Ice pumpkin attack no longer affected by damage fall off, but attack radius is 40% smaller. Okay, brilliant. Well, I'm glad that we still take full damage if we're out of the shell, but attack radius is smaller, or you can get good and learn how to parry the ice pumpkin attack. That's the alternative. Elite ramming grubs deal less damage and have better telegraphing of where their AoE damage is coming from. Elite lightning crabs have been reworked. It's not really been reworked. It just means that, or it has been, but also it's still consistent with the way it was before. They now fire more of the circular purple balls, as it were. They still bounce off the walls and stuff like that, but there's more of that. So that attack is more annoying to deal with, but you can jump through it. Elite Hornets now have a spawn limit of 2 to prevent a situation where the entire ground is covered with Hornet energy rings. I've also reduced the chance of them spawning resin Hornet destructibles for the same reason. Hornets now fly at a lower height to make them take damage from damage areas on the ground. Cool, awesome. Remove the healing enemies challenge modifier. Yeah, we already know. Remove randomness from many enemy attacks. I originally designed some enemy prediction features with range of values so that they might sometimes aim lower or higher than usual to make them feel more alive, but I think making all enemies as consistent as possible is much better for the gameplay and skill ceiling. Yeah, this is great, but this is also why sniper crabs and stuff like that are tough, because yeah, they're not missing as frequently, they're hitting more frequently, but you know, that's fine as well. Rewrote homing projectile logic to allow for many more interesting enemy attack formations as well, and smoother projectile movement when using homing shot or other homing mods. Homing is significantly better now than it was before, which is really good, and it also starts slow and goes fast. So you'll see that the homing grubs, they will have a slow initial projectile into something really fast that will really home into you. So it was pretty rough at the beginning of the beta, but NoScrub has done an amazing job to actually make it really consistent, which is good. Grubs no longer hide from the player, which slowed down the pace when trying to clear islands fast. Great, thanks. Increased crystal amount rewarded for defeating elites by 300%, but defeating boss by 200% to make them more rewarding, especially in the case of those new Island 3 elites. Decrease the chances of enemies jumping and dashing by 25% in Ultra Chaos, just because it's more annoying than fun to throw a grenade and see the enemies leap 3 times in a row out of the way. This still happens, but less likely. Cool. I don't really play Ultra Chaos too often, but yeah, good to hear they're getting a bit of love. Reduce the time between bursts of Elite Fire Skull X projectiles, and change the formation to be vertical lines so projectiles more focused in a small area and less likely to carpet the entire island in fire. I love this. That's great. Change the Elite Fire Skull because they can suck when you get hit with fire, but also fire stacks changing with armor is really nice. Remove the elite ice launch slam attack as it rarely hit and felt cheap when it did hit. This means that also elite ice skulls are less likely to die off the stage, which is sad, but you know, it's fine. Reduce the speed of all enemy launch slam attack starfish elite fire crab to make them easier to dodge. Cool, thank you very much. Elites and bosses were often a complete joke and melted in seconds due to the power spike from going to the shop. To make it feel a bit more balanced and like a proper duel to test your build, I've moved the biome enemy health scaling back one island, so the jump in enemy health that normally would happen in the first desert island now happens in the final Arctic island, and so on for other biomes. To be clear, this only affects the last island of each biome. It doesn't happen on the first tropical elite island for fairness, and enemy scaling is otherwise unchanged. Okay, so to make sense of this, essentially what happens is the first tropical biome, normal scaling, but as soon as you go on from there, it's been kind of brought back a little bit more, which means that once you hit the next boss island, they're going to be stronger like the ones in the desert biome you're about to see, and then the same with the desert biome, they're going to be a bit stronger like the ones in the volcanic, and so on and so forth. I like this change. Yeah, definitely don't like melting bosses too quickly, especially early. It does feel nice, but also it's not really a challenge, so that's great. Limited the amount of bounces many enemy projectiles have. They can be quite unpredictable and cause cheap damage. Totally agree. Thanks for that noise. Fixed large grubs often performing their attacks hidden out of sight at the back of the island, slowing down the pace. Yeah, glad. The homing grub or enraged grub sitting at the back just trying to snipe you out was horrible. All right, moving into the quality of life changes. Some of these are pretty big. So you can now ping owned pickups, including, you know, all the unchosen loot in your chest, to allow teammates to pick them up without you having to make space in your inventory, just to remove the ownership and then immediately drop the loot. So really nice in multiplayer. You now just, well, for me, it's middle click. If you don't know, go to your keybinds and have a look, but you can now ping those pickups and it just enables your teammate to choose whatever they want. So really nice. You don't have to do the drop and whatever it is. You don't have to drop. You just click on it now, which is great. Rewrote interaction logic to never allow portal to be interacted with while there are chests or pickups in front of you. This prevents annoying situations that could happen where you try to open a chest and accidentally choose a portal behind it before you took your loot. Yep, happened to everyone, happened to me. Really great change. Added unique player colors in multiplayer, which will affect your name tag and ping to make it easier to identify teammates. Really nice, yeah, solid. Crystals dropped by enemies in Ultra Chaos now get auto collected when the island ends if you haven't already expired, to prevent tedious backtracking. So actually kind of a nice quality of life to Ultra Chaos. So I can always remember when I would kill a lot of enemies, the island would end, and then there's that kind of slow down time. You'd have to run back and go back just to pick them up. So yeah, quite nice that it now gets auto collected. Many improvements have been made to portal spawns, preventing multiple of the same type of portal from spawning, like 4 of the same waves or elite portal, and increasing the variety of portal choices that can appear. Awesome. Salvaging happens twice as fast and improves pacing and responsiveness. Yeah, it's super quick now, which is great. Improved the positioning of the red energy rings that spawn from rocks to be more visible and less likely to be hidden in the ground. Yep, another great one. Improved portal VFX to appear faster, as previously it could take over a second before the 2x flawless icons show up. Cool. No more than one elemental damage area can overlap at the same time to improve visual clarity, performance, and overall consistency. It's possible for enemies to layer 10 of the same damage on one spot, which resulted in players getting melted out of nowhere. I love that. That's really good. That's a nice nerf to enemies as well, especially something that's spitting out lots of fire damage or poison. Really good. Elemental damage areas can no longer spawn underwater. Yeah, thanks for that. That's great. Mirrored projectile challenge modifier now works on damage over time and ability damage, but there's a minimum time between mirrored projectile spawns to prevent extreme amounts of projectiles spawning on frequently ticking damage. Cool. Look, kind of a nerf, also buff. Does mean like time shot will have projectiles being thrown at you, but yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's kind of cheating in a way. You can now move backwards and sideways on ice, but should still feel slippery and hard to change directions quickly. Great. Glass Cannon and other greed perks that negatively impact max health now correctly restore the max health they took if interacting with a random totem. I love this. That was the worst. You take Glass Cannon and then you'd go to a random totem, get rid of it, and then you'd be in a weird state of limbo where you'd only get 1 health per, well, this is back with hearts. But no, that's great. Landmines have a shorter fuse time to make them much more likely to hit enemies and be more fun to use in general. Brilliant. So that's a great buff. Landmines spawn from Landmine Rain modifier can now be destroyed much more easily and are less easily knocked around by your shots. Cool. Added a separate ammo counter for dual wield weapons. Cool. You can still do the uppercut bug, which is fun. Added an upwards force when knocking enemies back to make it easier to knock them off ledges and generally make melee knockback more consistent. Really nice. I got a friend who'll love that. Disabled enemy ragdoll physics for now. It was lowering performance, obscuring vision, and causing crashes in some cases. Yep, no more do we have that weird homing grub slowly ragdolling off the map. Fixed ultra-wide monitor field of view being too zoomed in and not positioned on the crab correctly. Yeah, I've got some friends who'll love that. You can now spam the infinite pestle faster than before. Yeah, totally good. That's good. Reroll in the shop now is less delay before pickups and new prices are visible. Also good. Improved UI text legibility by adding a consistent drop shadow. This should make it easier to see bright surfaces like sand, snow, or sky. Cool. Add a speed tag to Speed Demon and Ring of Swiftness, and it made it mandatory to have at least one speed tag piece of loot before Speed of Power will show up. This is really nice because now people that do want to go for Speed is Power, or if you want to see that sort of thing, pick up Speed Demon and Ring of Swiftness and it's going to show up, rather than before where it would come out of nowhere. Speed is Power is there and you'd be like, oh, well, now I need to find Speed Demon or Ring of Swiftness. Really nice. Resin Hornet Destructibles can now spawn loot with Driller. We love that. All chance-based mods now accurately show their actual chance to trigger in the inventory UI, so no more guessing when you pick up gold dice. This is amazing because now you can pick up an item or you can pick something up and trial and error to see what's being increased by how much, so that's really nice. So retroactively it updates. Text chat now respects uppercase and lowercase. You're not always shouting like this. Love that. Added a new sound when chat message is received. That's also really good because it's really frustrating when someone would type you wouldn't see it. Exploding slugs no longer deal damage to you when eliminating them at close range in Ultra Chaos difficulty. That's good for Ultra Chaos players because I know it's tough. Entering water no longer cancels your slide. It felt clunky and annoying. The movement speed penalty is enough by itself. Cool, thank you very much. Weapon spread now resets on reloading, so no more high spread after reloading. Cool beans. Added free look to spectating camera. Yay! So you can finally look around and see what's going on while spectating. That's really nice. Although hopefully you're getting revived in that time. Rewrite spiraling projectile launch does not completely break when under 60 FPS. It may look different to before, but at least it won't, shouldn't brick builds on lower FPS anymore. Increase the minimum distance that an enemy can spawn, including resurrecting enemies from a player to prevent situations where slugs would appear to spawn under players and make them take unfair damage. Thank you so much, love that. Adjusted player spawn points to make sure they aren't next to barrels. Yep, that's great. The game now auto-saves on Island 4 of each biome as well as Island 1 as before to make restarting a biome after disconnect or crash less punishing. This is also a bit of a buff to people trying to do the flawless challenges. You can now at least go back to Island 4 rather than Island 1 or the fourth one. That's great. Crystals are now auto-collected on enemies that get eliminated by full damage and Ultra Chaos difficulties. I love that. Crystals are now auto-collected for convenience on shop islands on Ultra Chaos difficulties. I love that too. Improved paycheck description to be less confusing. Now mentions that it's based on 20% of the current price of a common pickup. Great stuff. Added a low ammo sound. I did notice that. I really liked it. Improved various interactions with accelerating projectiles. Shooting the flamethrower or cluster launcher with accelerating shot no longer results in projectile falling uselessly to the ground in front of you. Very cool. All right. I believe we just got the bugs now. And then that's everything. And you can go about your normal day. Fixed enemies becoming invincible after a certain point in a run. So truly endless runs are now possible. This is quite big. This does mean that world records are now open. So I'll be really keen to see where we're going to land with that. I did get a message from someone. They were like at Island 10,000. So we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, really nice change. Fixed homing barrels staying active and getting in your way when clearing an island. So yeah, cool. Thanks, homing barrels. Fixed projectiles firing in formations like arc, leaning left or right depending on the direction they were moving in. They're now aligned horizontally with your crosshair, improving consistency. Great, love that. Fixed launching enemies winding up for too long and bouncing off the ground before dealing damage from the launch. Okay, yeah, there would be times where the elite fire crab would be really frustrating. Fixed bouncing explosion not working properly. Slow projectiles would appear not to bounce at all. This is fixed many inconsistent enemy attacks that bounce when they shouldn't have. Yep, also great. Fixed bouncing shot giving 3 bounces at level 1 where it should be 1 bounce. No, my bouncing shot. Fixed bouncing shot not giving a damage bonus to weapons that deal proximity damage such as the blade launcher. I like that. That's really nice. A nice buff to blade launcher. Fixed shield FX being too difficult to see on certain enemy types like blockers, skulls, cool. Fixed many enemy burst attacks doing more damage than intended. Enemies can now deal max one of their projectiles worth of damage in a short time frame. Previously, they sometimes deal damage that counted multiple projectiles at once, which felt unfair. Damage was dealt. Totally agree. This was the most annoying thing, when a lightning crab would shoot its projectiles and you just get blasted in one hit. So it now does the max of one of their projectiles worth of damage, which is good. Teammates setting off for any landmines, that's been fixed. Love that. Fixed greed loot, that wasn't specifically a perk from being auto-looted. Okay, cool. Fix the slow-mo effect that happens when a player gets eliminated, only happening when the host was eliminated. Now works on all players. Cool, that's fun. That definitely happened in one of my runs I had with 16 people. Fix clone explosion, not having visuals for mods like aura explosion. Okay, great. Fix health rot, max rot healing areas spawned from secondary shards that fly out, not given the same amount of health. Brilliant. Okay, so that means that the secondary shards now give the same amount of health, which is good. Fix the streak shot buff being reset by indirect projectiles such as scatter shot. Really nice. And split shot there. Fix poison stacks on enemies being limited by teammates that didn't have toxic equip. The enemy will now always stay at the highest poison stack limit from all players that have it. Cool. Fixed crosshair. Actually, that's actually really nice when I think about it. Fixed crosshair spread, not updating on dual wield weapons. Great. Fixed enemy projectiles often completely missing if fired at you while aiming down the sights. Didn't know that was a thing. Fixed enemies sometimes shooting at the ground below them instead of at the player. Okay, great. Fixed certain mod combos, a few levels of big shot and glue shot and a crossbow, not dealing damage in some cases due to projectile collision being larger than the explosion radius. This has resulted in an AoE buff for big shot on weapons with large projectiles. But yeah, this seems like a pretty big deal, especially with big shot being one of the big things that I take on Blade Launcher, so that's great. Fixed elemental damage from the fire and ice balls created by the ice staff and flamethrower scaling where the weapon damage wasn't intentional. The goal of these weapons is to spec into fire side and ice cold rather than just building into damage as usual. I've doubled their base elemental stacks to compensate. This is what I was talking about earlier. I did a weapon damage build on the flamethrower that was absolutely crazy, but it's good to see that's taken away so that he wants us to focus more on building stacks rather than, building weapon damage. That's good. Okay, elite barrel skulls are now being holdout. Great. Homing thorns deal inconsistent damage. Great. Various minutes go off screen. Good. Fixed loot location UI not showing up. Okay, cool. Leap of Faith now does full damage. Be careful with this because it's pretty tough. Fixed crystals sometimes spawning that it had to be manually collected. Okay, cool. Fixed not being able to... Actually, that's quite nice now that I don't have to run into them. Fixed not being able to interact with or melee properly with high levels of big bones equipped. Okay, that's good. Now I have 255 big bones and finish the run. Fixed rocket launcher not consistently exploding when aiming directly down. Yeah, that was a weird bug. Glad that's gone. Fixed starfish flying upwards infinitely, soft locking the game. That never happened to me, but that's annoying. Fixed crystal asteroids not working on demolition and parkour. Okay, that'd be interesting on a parkour. Fixed various awkward chest spawns locations and reduce the distance of chests from portals. Yeah, I did notice that the chest not going into the lava was great. Fixed inventory slots being blocked by other UI elements, so resolutions. Cool. Fixed issue where non-host players sometimes didn't save their autosave at the start of the biome. Okay, brilliant. Fixed aura shot resetting streak shot. Thank goodness. Fixed bouncing shot causing massive damage spikes. In some cases, there are several bugs here, like damage increasing exponentially per bounce on weapons like Blade Launcher or free bounce you get from orbiting count towards bouncing shot. Okay, great. That's funny. Fixed level up sometimes not leveling anything up. Okay, brilliant. Fixed max blender level not always dealing damage consistently with claw and dagger. Good. Fixed boss keys and health sometimes not showing up at all. Thank you so much. Fixed soft lock where island would never end, usually on late game runs when you're eliminating enemies as soon as they spawned. Yep, cool. Fixed enemies sometimes not facing the correct player when performing the attack and firing through their own bodies without turning. Okay, love that. Fixed leap of faith, dealing damage to health through armor, dealing damage on parkour islands, and rewrote trigger conditions to be purely based on how hard you hit the ground when landing rather than the previous one, which could trigger at weird moments. Definitely good. And then finally, phew, that was a lot of patch notes to write up. Enjoy the update and see you soon for the next one. I plan on releasing a few smaller updates, randomizer mode, ultra chaos modifiers, hot Tony, more frequently as I add things like unique pickup visuals in the coming months. Thank you so much for playing. Well, that was a lot. That was a lot to go through, and hopefully I have spoken through some of those big changes, things to expect. Gosh, it really is. Heaps. There will obviously be a video coming out on the Lightning Sceptre, Airstrike, Katana, and the Arcane Wand. I've not played with it yet, so I'm quite excited. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one.